and then we'll start to offer lunch, and then the poster session. Okay, you can meet all the researchers there. So we do have the hard stop at 12 p.m. Okay. So this is actually our workforce development session. You heard a lot of the talk about workforce challenges, and this challenge is pretty real. And you see, like the planning session we're talking about, you have the money, you have the project, but how are you going to deliver? Right? If you do not have the right person, you will not be able to deliver. Maybe I just hold it, that's easier. Typically, I'm loud enough as a professor, so. But this may be for the purpose of a video recording. So we have 4 outstanding panelists today. Dan Ho Chang, who is the traffic engineer at Washington State Department of Transportation. We also have, so Dan Ho is the transportation agency. We have Mo, as the kind of mix of the classical workforce and the new workforce from Amazon. We have Kirk from Lumination, is our longtime supporter of the UTC, and I'm glad we got him. We also get Michael from the classical transportation industry. So these 4 panelists are going to share their thoughts about making this staff turnover as an opportunity to build up the future transportation workforce. They each will spend some time talking about their view, and I hope we have some time for Q&A. Maybe after each talk, you can bring 1 or 2 questions up, and then we can discuss at the end, questioning all the speakers. So first of all, we want to invite Dan Ho Chang to be the first speaker. Dan Ho is the State Traffic Engineer, Director of Transportation Operations Division for WashDOT. He has worked over 30 years in transportation engineering field, focused on improving safety accessibility for communities. Dan Ho has worked as a city traffic engineer for Seattle and Everett, and has as area traffic engineer for Washington State DOT, where he was responsible for traffic signals group, traffic analysis, channelization review, and traffic safety programs. Dan Ho is more recognized as a famous person on Twitter. And a lot of people following him because he's tweeting very useful message. Now, Dan Ho, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and so here's a message from Roger Millar. So we're committed to building a workforce that reflects the people and the community that we serve. WashDOT is an agency of about 7,000 employees and a lot of knowledge and experience in the agency. About 2,000 of the engineering staff, 40% are eligible for retirement. Our maintenance crews, about of the 2,000, 30% are eligible for retirement, and our secretaries, 30% of the vessel, 37% of the terminal, 24% of maintenance, and 75% of the captains, so people who are really critical to providing service, right? Just this week, our chief engineer, Kevin Dayton, announced that he's retiring after 40 plus years, right? So think about the knowledge, the dedication, the connection that each individual person that retires from an agency takes as they leave the door. It's pretty astounding, and it's one that I think we all face in public sector, private sector. Our entire society is aging as well, right? And this is happening at historic funding levels. So there is an expectation to deliver a program with experience leaving at the department. And this is also, I think, true for many of the other public agencies as well. How we get there is really with collaboration and making sure that we are bringing in resources, working together with our partners. This is a picture of my office when I left the DOT to go to a city environment after 16 years. And of course, the message that I'm a bum for leaving the group. So it's a very close knit, just like any work group that's dedicated to what you do. We work together, we play together. This was my family, so leaving was very hard. And about 30% of that group is retired, and there's another portion that's about to retire, including I am eligible to retire as well. So I mean, it's a family that we consider, that we foster this collaboration, making sure that we're supporting each other. And what I'm finding when I started the position in the DOT as a student was that those mentors that were looking out to make sure they are supporting, because as a student, I had amazing mentors who told me that you need to apply for this position, you'll be perfect for it, here's the things that you should consider. Those are critical to make sure that as you are starting your career, people recognize how to foster talent, and also once you foster those talents, they're able to thrive in that environment. And I was very lucky to be in that environment. So Roger Millar, our Secretary of Transportation, will be anticipated to be the president of AASHTO. So American Association of State Highway Officials will be starting his term in October 19. He has emphasized for his tenure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is his top priority. He wants to foster workforce development for all 50 states and really highlight resiliency. So what we're seeing in our climate right now, what we're experiencing with smoke outside, all the extreme weather, it's really about how we are caretakers of our environment, and transportation is a huge part of it. We also need to recognize that planning and how we integrate with people who are making land use decisions is critical. So our resilient transportation is safe, sound, and smart. We need to think about how we are serving the public. We don't want anyone to get hurt, right? So we're seeing a pandemic really creating a huge amount of consequences for people who are outside the vehicle currently. And we're also seeing behaviors that are very antisocial because of the current environment. So we also want to be really taking care of what our transportation system. So we have to make sound decisions, right? So making sure that we're focusing on the things that are really critical and making those smart decisions, so that if we are at a place, we're able to do a lot of our work. Not everyone, but there is a segment of our population that can do our work remotely. It's a huge opportunity, right? So that is a trip that is served but not taken. How do we capitalize on that? Is it broadband infrastructure to allow communities that may not have this ability to have that ability? Is there a way to provide information to the truck driver who is working extra hard because there is a labor shortage for their supplies? How do we get that information so that that truck driver has a location where they could lay over and rest so they can continue their trip? Or is there technology for that vehicle so that they are now able to traverse their trip in a more safe way? Are there ways to automate and provide more efficient service? Are there ways for us to think about how we deliver information? We go out and we actually collect data, right? But there's actually data being collected by vehicles. There are data being collected by our phones, right? We can leverage this. We don't have to actually go out and put effort and resources that we should be thinking about partnership. And then we need to grow our workforce. So you, students, and you, practitioners, have a responsibility to think about how we can leverage and then connect with the people who are providing the services so that we can be more efficient, smart, and safe and sound. And we learned these lessons really hard. So I don't know if you guys, so we have all sorts of weird incidents that occur. And this one was a frozen fish truck, a truck that toppled over with a load of very valuable produce, fish in the cargo. And of course, no one was talking to each other. There was a decision made that that cargo was very valuable. We want to make sure that we don't damage it. And so it took 9 hours to clear this incident. And it really impacted the entire community. And it's because we didn't talk to each other. There was actually a construction project with equipment right there that could have cleared that in a short period of time before the evening commute. And so, if you think about safe and sound and smart, those elements were not in place for this incident. And so yesterday there was a celebration, and you were there too, right? So it's really about utilizing all of our resources that are available. We had the private sector who wants to help. So all we have to do is reach out and say, can you help us develop a platform so that we can all communicate together to see what's happening, what are the critical things that we should be looking out for. So Bellevue, or Kirkland, Tacoma, if there is an incident that's really concerning, you can highlight it on this virtual platform, and then we are all aware of it. As it becomes something that isn't critical, you remove it. If it's something that escalates, you need to do a court because maybe there's a hazardous material that's involved. Then now you can flag and say, this is one that's maybe a little more regionally sensitive issue. And you can have the resources of State Patrol that's sitting there. You can have the resources of your transit agency. Terry White, our chief executive for King County Metro, is there, making sure all the agencies are really aware and coordinate together and send resources so that we can actually help address the safety needs and the mobility needs of people who are involved. And of course, Governor Kristen Gregar, who thought of this and got the groups together, pretty much helped us celebrate us all working together, and that the private sector, the local agencies, the government agencies are now have a platform that we can grow and expand out to. It's really about using that innovation, and we need the innovation that's coming from the research. We need the innovation that's coming from the private sector, leveraging what the needs are from the local agencies, and then making sure that it is sustainable. This is kind of a past paradigm, right? So we have operation centers that are staffed by people. We're looking out for incidents. We have sensors out there. But we also have ways, we have drivers that are really, they are reporting these information to us, right? So we need to integrate that as part of our response, right? How do we communicate back to the drivers themselves? Are there ways to now make sure that these incidents, when they do occur, or concerns that they do occur, that with the construction you don't have people drive on I-90 when it's closed on the bridge onto Slipper Street because Waze is now telling you that that's the quickest way to get around and now create a situation for local governments that they can't manage. And of course, innovation is happening in the academic world and in the private sector, and it's accelerating and it's amazing. And I am really hopeful that this will help us serve our communities better. And the information that and the equipment that we utilize in the public sector, they're old, they're antiquated. When I was at a traffic signal technician training in Yakima 2 days ago, and the equipment that I worked on as a signal engineer are the same. It was the same equipment. It's like, oh, I remember that, right? So now it hasn't really changed and progressed. And I know that technology can replace this large cabinet with a little phone. There are technologies that can talk to the drivers themselves. And we need to think more broadly about how we support our equipment and infrastructure in that innovative way. So we're hiring. So if you're interested, watchdogJobs.com.
Thank you, Dang Ho.
Oh, just put it there.
Yeah. So our second speaker is Mo. Mo is a senior program manager, learning and development at Amazon. He's also an affiliated assistant professor in UW's CEE department, where he teaches courses in structural dynamics, steel structure design, mechanics for materials, and accounting and finance for construction. Mo received his PhD and MBA from UW. Prior to joining the UW and Amazon, he spent over 15 years in civil engineering, working as a structural, civil, and project engineer in Iran, Qatar, and the United States. Mo serves on the Wellspring Family Service Board, where he works with children and families facing homelessness, and also serves as planning commissioner for the City of Bellevue, analyzing and developing recommendations for the City Council on planning issues using public input and staff proposals. I really invited Mo is because he was from civil department. He also trained the Amazon employees, so he knows where the gap is, and hopefully you bridge up.
Doing my best. Thank you. Thanks for being in this session, not the others. When you hear someone talks about it, you say, who is they talking about? Is it me? And then you realize, yeah, so it's all fluff. So they asked me to come here and maybe present a little bit of perspective of industry, maybe not the traditional industry, maybe more tech industry. And I'm here to talk about what problems they are seeing and how we can help them by universities and education system, how can we help them to fix those problems. The problems that we are seeing in the talent and the employees is these four. The shortage of talent, the lack of diversity that I'm not going to address in this talk because of the time, but also the gap between skills that we are seeing, and then eventually the high attrition and turnover rate that we are seeing in these days. Start with shortage of talent. There was a rumor for a long time that the robots are going to take all of our jobs. It's true that they transform and change, and now some of the jobs are happening by them, but they also create not only equal, but more jobs. So we need to start realizing that there is a shortage of talent. Korn Ferry study shows that by 2030, there would be 85 million shortage of talent, and that's the size of Germany, to put it in perspective. And that's going to equate to 8.5 trillion unrealized talent. If I just wanted to make you one job, a software developer engineer, it seems that at some point we need 400,000 jobs opening per year. But the supply of universities, and not just US, Russia, India, China, Europe is probably 100,000 graduate. So there is a huge gap between what the supply and what the demand is. So we need talent. But the talent that eventually companies are hired, there is a gap between the skill that they have at the output of universities by what the companies want. And there are four main reasons for these gaps. The traditional gap, the theory versus real business problem or application. In the university, we really focus on the science and foundation and all of those. But in the company, they are asking you to just do the job immediately. Technical skills versus human skills. We historically in our engineering, we really emphasize on technical skills. We touch base the human skills, but that's not what we are seeing in companies. We really need to emphasize on human skills. The scale in universities, we work on our laptop. That's the scale, but when you come to the companies, you work with a large infrastructure that the employees are not trained to use or work on that. And then lastly is the skills. Like the skills are changing so fast and universities cannot keep up with that. 33% of the total skills for a job is new. And then there's a phase, like I finished my schools, universities, and then I never come back, but I still need to learn all of the new skills there somehow. And then the difference between our IQ and EQs, like usually we as an engineer or in tech world, we emphasize in IQ, and then we have individual contributors that they are amazing at performing their tasks. And then we want to reward them, and then we make them a manager, and now they are managing a big team. But they learn all of those technical and functional skills very structured way, but they never been trained to be a leader or to manage a team. Therefore, they are going to be in disadvantages when they are dealing with people and managing them. That's another issue. So the social and emotional skill is something that now we know is maybe even more important than functional and technical skills. The beauty is EQ and those human skills for the most part is trainable, and we know that high EQ is going to correlate to a lot of benefit in the companies, satisfaction, less turnover, and also high performing employee. So far, it was a short of talent, so we are in war with all of the other companies to hire. Then we hire all of those talents, the skill is not there, so we train them, we onboard them, we educate them. Now we have them, but then they leave, like by the very, very high percentage. In 2018, the turnover rate was 13% in the tech industry, and now in 2020, is around 22%. So it's like lose-lose situation for the companies. And there is a very nice study by McKinsey that talk about the reasons that employees are leaving. And some of them, I believe, is because of the COVID and is not going to last. Like, I believe lack of workplace flexibility maybe is not going to be a top 10 reason why employees leaving after the pandemic is over. But the top 3 reason, the compensation is always there, but lack of career development and advancement is number 1 that why employees are leaving their job. And also uncaring and uninspiring leaders. And I'm sure there will be some correlation between lack of skills and lack of career development and advancement. I believe there should be a correlation between the lack of EQ in managers and uncaring and uninspiring leaders and that lead employees leave. And I think there is a place to address them. The other interesting thing is when they leave, they are not coming back to the same industry. Like almost 50% of the people who are leaving their jobs, they want something new. The traditional way of employees gone. Like my dad worked 30 years in one job till he retired. Many people that we know working for Boeing for 35 years. That is not what we're seeing here. They did a Microsoft survey from their Gen Z, and 52% said, hey, we are leaving our job, but 70% plus said, hey, if there's another opportunity for me in Microsoft, another role, we will stay. So that's another interesting. And now, what is the solution? I think what company is realizing that there should be a work that is continuous reskilling, upskilling their employees. These interventions should be happening to make them first encouraged to stay at their job, but the opportunity to do something else if they need to. The process of this, the framework is not rocket science. Maybe the implementation is hard, but we for sure need to know what are those critical roles and critical skills are that we need to train our employees for. And then also find the competency that we need to develop and we need to train them. And then we also find what talents existing potential employee that we have that we can train and make them to be that critical roles. But then number 4, after we know the gap analysis, after we know what needs to be trained, what that learning opportunities is something that we can collaborate with universities, because companies don't want to invest and create that number 4, that education, that Universities has the infrastructure, has everything to create that for companies. But I think the gap is we are not talking to the companies, don't talk to universities as much as it should. To me, this is the area that collaboration can happen. Like, this is the way that companies and universities can work. At the bottom is our typical guest lecturer, let's go to a field trip and just see what's happening. Even we have internship, but they are not real internship. They just companies come to campus and recruit, that's it. There is no cohesive and unity between these two. Why not create a minor between business and universities? A minor 15 credits teaching human skills, teaching technical skills, exactly know what we need to be successful in business, a co-creation with 2 internships, one after sophomore year, one after junior year, and then we create a day 1 talent ready. There is no need for onboarding. They know exactly what they need to do when they start their journey in the university. I would be remiss to not emphasize again on human skills. The fact that we need to learn and work with machines and AI is obvious. Look at the poster outside, 5 of them was machine learning AI, no doubt. But without human skills, we are going to be in trouble working in the bigger skills companies and as a team. Now I'm going to show you some fluffs, what that teaching should look like. They're all big words and the devils in details, but I think if we pay attention to how we create our learning journey for our customers, we need to have all of these 6 components and to make a very nice teaching. I'm a huge fan of chalk. Like, who doesn't, as a teacher, who doesn't like to have a blackboard, chalk, solve a huge problem, write it down, and everyone thinks you are a genius, they don't know you are doing that for 14 years, so you memorize all of the answers. But, and I'm not saying we should not do not chalk talk, but I'm just saying we can use technology to just incorporate and improve our teaching method by some of the stuff. Right now, my video that they are making right now can be sent to an AI, and the AI can tell, hey, Mo, you use your hand too much. You are not looking at everyone. You have a lot of gap. So, and I can improve my teaching by just a video of myself and AI. So why not using those in our classrooms and help our students to do better? This is all I have for you here. But if you have any question that you cannot get right now, this is my email. Send me an email and I will respond.
Thank you, Mo. It looks like maybe people prefer having all questions discussion at the end. So now I would like to introduce our 3rd speaker, Mike Clark. He's a VP with David Evans and Associates, and has more than 38 years of experience working for various projects for ports, state, county, and city agencies. In preparing the purely sound energy contract documents and transportation studies, alternative analysis. His experience includes roadway widening, reconstruction, and realignment improvements, as well as storm drainage, channelization, erosion control, major earthwork, retaining walls, bridges, traffic signalization, illumination, utility, undergrounding, relocation, and permitting liaison with numerous agencies. He has led the company's work on several large and significant transportation projects. Mike is actively involved in the American Council of Engineering Companies for over 20 years and was chairman in 2017. Over the past 26 years, Mike has also been involved with the American Public Works Association and was the 2015 president. Mike, you have a lot of experience and also doing all important work. I hope all the wires will be underground so we don't be bothered by the storm. Thank you.
Just tell me to finish the mock interchange. So I've been involved in a lot of projects, East Lane from Seattle to Bellevue, across the floating bridge, Lake Interchange, I-405, Renton to Bellevue, 520 crossing from Renton, to Bellevue to the lake, that part. So I've had a lot of experience with a lot of projects, but let me get my slide here.
Just escape this.
There we go. So this is me. So anyway, I'll get going here. There's over 2 million architects and engineers in the public works field today, across the country, that are specializing in what we do inside the public infrastructure. Over 25% of those are going to retire in the next few years, and it's probably accelerated given COVID, so it's going faster than we expected. The environment with climate change and the community needs because of COVID is changing rapidly, and what is our purpose here is moving pretty fast. Infrastructure needs are always decades behind population needs. We are following what the community wants, and it takes a long time. A good example would be the 405 quota program I mentioned. As part of a planning study in 2000, that first got that permitted. We're only halfway done building it, 20 years. So it takes a long time. The funding thing is sweet. We've got more money now than we ever had. The feds are going to give us $5 billion a year, and we got $17 billion from the legislature last year, and we already had $15 billion from 5 years earlier. Plus Sound Transit, that's $40 billion. So we're flush with funds. But we need the team members. And for me, the graduates here, you have an amazing chance to really accelerate your careers in this paradigm. So again, here's kind of a highlight from the Department of Labor here. In our industry, there's 15 billion people that are in transportation workforce, and then of those, just the transportation facilities portions is 1.7 million people are involved. Professionals are involved in what we do every day. And then each and every state across the country has some sort of expected growth metric. There's not a bad spot in here. And this is past history, but it is certainly identified needs that we all need. And I got this bit of information from the AWA program and looking at the same problem that we're doing. The next thing I want to talk about is what do you need to make a difference in your growth in your career? And like Mo said earlier here, the technical skills are already fixed. You already know what that is. But we really need people skills. And that's, again, it's the emotional intelligence, and that's recognizing your presence amongst the team that you are working all the time. Because that is how you build successful projects. You get that environment where the project is fun, you learn something, you get it done faster, and it's a better work product at the end. But to do that, and this is from my past experience, you need to be humble. I mean, you check your ego and your self-esteem in the car when you walk in that door, and be part of this team, and you work with the team. And that's really important. And the other part for me is, I learned this from my professor in the last day of class in 1984, say thank you and please every day. Be that respectful person, and you'll get a lot of more opportunities and help to do what you want to do. Understand the why and purpose of these projects. You know, sometimes it's like, I'm building a bridge. Well, why are you building the bridge? Well, because it is the last one broke. Or no, it's to help the community have a safer and a more productive pathway to get to and from work, or the sidewalk. So that a mother with her two kids can safely walk down the street to the park, not on the shoulder or the ditch. I mean, those are the passionate part of the human side of things of what we're doing. Understand that part. Be curious about your role and where you are in the system. We are part of, as consultants and engineering designers, a bigger project, a bigger system here, and how do you fit into that? So you understand where you are and where you are with the team. I get data from a group, and I got to use it to produce a work product. And I need to know what this is for, how I got it, and what is going to happen with it when I'm done with it. It's continuum here. If you don't know, you're kind of lost. You've got to figure that out and be willing to work below and above. Got to learn every day. I hate to say it, but we're in the second oldest profession on earth, civil engineering. It's what we've done, or are going to do. It's been done probably 10,000 years ago, to be honest with you. People have learned how to communicate, work, and build things for a long, long time. And it's probably been done before. So you've got to ask somebody about what's going on here, not recreate something new. Be durable. Everything you do is going to get questioned. From your first idea to your boss to the contractor who's building it, you're going to get challenged. And it's okay. Just be prepared for it. It's part of the process. Communication skills. You know, we talked about it earlier with Mo. Speaking and writing are really important. To, again, tell that story, the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, and be that team player. And you know, I work with a lot of engineers, and one of their pitfalls is they don't listen very well. They think they already know the answer, so they kind of shut off here. So we've got to make sure and listen, because the problem is not what we think it is. And there are a lot of solutions to what we do. And if we want it to be successful, they must be acceptable, fundable, and constructive. You might have great ideas, but if you can't build it, it's a bad idea. So you've got to be careful about that. And each and every project you do will be super unique. It might be the same intersection in Seattle, down the street, and you do the next one down there. They're going to be completely different with completely different issues, completely different engagements. So respect that. So that's what you need to make a difference. How do we make this an opportunity? The value of this public works career is super cool right now, because we are the stewards of the building environment. We figure out how to blend the built environment with what we're facing today, climate change, viscosity, all those things. And for us, I think we probably need to get touch points lower in our system with internships and educational funding with high school kids that are ready to graduate, to be involved in understanding what public works is all about. Facilitate a field trip to construction sites so they can see and touch what they should do. And of course, there's the highlight, the sustainable part of what we do, that whole balance of the economy, the environment, and the equity of how does this all fit together and things are going to work out. And those focus roll into this mobility for all, the complete streets, smart mobility, ADA compliance, so everybody can get through the corridor in a safe way. This passage is kind of a hot topic right now. I've got cool highway projects. They don't want to work on those. They want to work on this passage thing, because that tugs at heartstring. And that's what's really important to them. The same thing with some of the environmental stewardship, the water availability or the water quality. Or how do we really deal finally with the effluent that goes out to our water system? A little bit of the last 1% of stuff that's kind of messing things up. And the smart streets are the great opportunity, and you know, electric vehicles are cool, but we might have a problem with grid capacity. And like the ferries, you know, electrification of ferries, but they don't have the power to power up a ferry in 25 minutes. Or charge a ferry in some locations. You know. So anyway, our needs, from my perspective, understand what contract law and liability is. I work with my client here. We have a contract how I'm going to do my work. And my work is going to be used by a contractor. And there is a relationship there that we need to respect and understand how this all flows together and the management of risk that they get along. The specifications of things are important too, about making sure when we prescribe something to be done, it is very clear and complete. The other part is standard of care. I don't know if you know what standard of care is, but that's that notion where my client thinks I'm an engineer and I can design everything perfectly. And the contractor thinks I'm an engineer, and I told him how to build it perfectly, and it's not the case. Perfection is not possible, there's not time nor money to do that. So we have to figure out what is that notion of the right size. We all have ethics issues in engineering, we need to respect that. Project management, scope, schedule, budget, and work plans are associated with every assignment we do. Whether it's 1 hour or 1,000 hours, we really need to have an idea of what you need to do for what amount of time. The best design brought in late gets a 0. Just like school, client is not going to be happy with it. And you'll be noted as the late person. Working as an integrated team member, sustainability, I mentioned that before, and having that critical thinking about the work products that we use to build our infrastructure. Minimize the risk. I've got 2 more notions for you to think about as you think about what might be in the future. And I was in Japan, Tokyo, before COVID, and on the left side is this station, street crossing at the Shinjuku station. That's the traffic phase. On the right side is the people phase. Not very many cars, but 45 times the people. So our culture here and what's going on here as we inspire cities is really going to rebalance what we're doing here, similar to that. The other one is in a sector station. This is a roundabout that a streetcar goes around right next to the station. And there are literally thousands of bikes lined up there to get on the train to go wherever they're going. Plus, alongside this is a refrigerator parking lot full of bikes as well. But I got a lot of people biking to work now. So what are we doing to balance that out? So just a couple thoughts about the future. Okay.
Cool. Thank you very much, Steve, Mike. So our last speaker for the session is Kirk Vinish. Actually, we have known each other for over 10 years. And Kirk is currently Director of Planning at Lume Indian Business Council. He received his bachelor's degree of arts from Western Washington University and served as city planner for the city of Snohomish from 1998 to 2001. He's done a lot of work, very recognized leader in the Native American community. So now let's welcome Kirk.
So I thought I'd begin with this picture, walking off a cliff. This expression was used recently by a colleague of mine. If you've ever had to think about how something gets built by one of our professionals here, if Mike decides he wants to go, or gets the privilege of building a bridge, for example, what information does he begin with? Well, there's a lot. But one of the most important pieces of information is what's there right now on the ground. And so he has to hire a PLS, public land surveyor. And there's a famous public land surveyor in Washington State. Have you heard of him? His name is Tom Brewster. I don't think any of us, other than me, probably knows Tom. But Tom is the professional development officer for all of the surveyors in Washington State. And he used this expression, we've been walking off a cliff, in a recent meeting we had, because I wanted to talk about this session. What piece of wisdom can he share with you? And he said, well, we, the surveying profession, have been walking off a cliff and we're even not realizing it. Why did they do that? Well, they were trying to protect their profession They wanted to reduce competition, and they wanted to do as much as they could to exclude individuals from going into the profession. By doing that, they're all super valuable suddenly, and their ability to command high rates for their salary and so forth increased substantially. It's very hard in Washington State to become a public land surveyor. And they did that through two things. First, they lengthened substantially the apprenticeship, which is 6 years. And then they increased the difficulty of the testing, of the state licensing. The state licensing relies on the professionals in the field to give them guidance what's on the test. The test is really hard, and so therefore it's nearly impossible to pass. Most people will go through 4 or 5 times, and then most will quit trying. We have lots of engineers in the state of Washington. You know how many public land surveyors we have? Less than 800. So take that number and consider how much land is in the state of Washington. It has to be surveyed. Every time these folks want to do work, they need a surveyor. And so Todd was saying they have deliberately chosen to walk off a cliff because now there's not nearly enough surveyors. And he's deeply concerned about what the future holds for his profession. I'll try this guy instead. So how does Tom and all the other professionals in transportation make the current circumstance, which was already very nicely highlighted, the deficit we're having in skilled professionals, how do we turn that into an opportunity? And in talking with my colleagues, just anecdotally, these 3 topics came to the fore quickly. Remote working is probably going to be, in some form, the norm. It doesn't mean exclusively networking, I mean remote working. But it will be some part of your expected experience in the profession. A colleague of mine who has a firm in downtown Seattle, they're a big firm, they do lots of work, billion-dollar projects. When COVID hit, they all went home, they kept the receptionists at the office to greet clients they happened to come in or receive packages, and that was it. Everybody went home. They had a 50% increase in productivity, immediately. Now, as COVID seems to be more under control, some are coming back to the office, but the majority will not. Managing that has turned out to be more of a challenge than they ever imagined. I mean, they did incredible work trying to get to that point, but remote working, they expect that to be part of their norm in some form. The second thing is create opportunities for growth. That's been touched on already, but if you don't see an opportunity for growing as a professional or growing within that firm or state agency, you're not going to want to stay there. You're not going to be able to retain employees. And so that has to be built into the culture of the leadership within the organization. And we'll touch on leadership in just a moment. And finally, being sensitive to overall well-being of the employees. If your employer that you're thinking about working for doesn't really have a plan for your entire well-being, that might be disconcerting for you, might be worrisome, because you know there's other firms out there who will do a better job. And now we're in this competition for hiring new employees, and boy, we better be sensitive to how we're going to be able to accommodate all those needs of all the new employees. And they know that they can find other places to work. So employers should be far more sensitive than ever in the past on that topic. And so this new mindset is needed, I think. And talking with my colleagues anecdotally, these topics about workplace diversity, we tend to think about that diversity being in terms of maybe racial diversity or gender and so forth. But those in the field, the practitioners, refer to diversity in a broader sense. Diversity within age groups. Diversity in background, more importantly perhaps. What has been their experience that they can bring from other fields perhaps they've been in to make your firm, your agency more effective. That diversity in backgrounds is critical to being successful in the future. So an employer looking at you, if you've had a diversity of different activities, maybe outside of that field, that might be incredibly valuable to them because they have nobody with that background already in there. I took a tour recently of Valve. You know where Valve is in Bellevue? Really famous, wealthy company. I got to talk to some of their engineers, and all of them came from amazingly different backgrounds. Not a traditional, I got a degree in computer science and I got hired at Valve. That's not how it worked. And they loved working at Valve because they valued that diversity of background. And then employee values. I think employers need to rethink their mission statements, if some still use that, but rather, what is the values that their new employees are expecting you to have when they walk in the door? And if your values haven't changed in 20 years, you're going to have a struggle bringing on new employees who look at your values and see, oh, wait a minute, I don't really fit in here. This is not me. What you guys do is not where I want to be. And so being sensitive to where the employee values are going to the future is going to be critical in the next decade. And then finally, financial and sustainability benefits. So with the willingness for employees to be fluid in their movement, are we as employers making it possible for them to do that, but also attracting them by having a financially sustainable environment? Not only are we paying more these days, but are we looking at other ways of making sure that employees feel that they are really truly portable in their financials? So if we're talking about just the profession, we can talk about what you need in the technical skills side. But within the entire organization, you need to rethink how you're treating employees and bringing them on board. Because the HR departments may not be moving forward quickly enough for you. We struggle to hire new employees. I work for an Indian tribe, and we have this tradition that goes back centuries on how we go about hiring employees. But the current generation don't see that. And it's challenging for our HR department to think about how they go about hiring people. And now they're having to be re-educated themselves on what it takes to bring somebody on board. So that brings us then to something I wanted to share with you. The change of how transportation is seen by the organization. How does your organization, whether it's a public agency or in the private sector, how are they seen by the organization? Mike touched on this beautifully, I think. Do they see the connection between their work and how they're touching the community? And I like this illustration because these are not real pictures, right? This is an illustration done by a landscape architect on what this could look like in the future. This illustration informs the design engineers. When they go off to start doing the design work, they can look at those illustrations that maybe a planning commission or other public bodies said, yeah, that's the vision, that's where we want to go. And that, therefore, those engineers can have that same passion and excitement about where they're going to go. So it's important that every employee should be able to identify how their work touches the lives of others. If you don't feel like you have meaningful work, what's going to happen? You're going to move on someplace else where you feel like you're truly doing something that's contributing to the community. And so that is an important part. We recently had our staff meeting, and I asked this question to the whole staff. We have engineers and planners and biologists and so forth. The most insightful comment came from our receptionist. And I thought that was hilarious. She was the one that found the most important point. And she says, well, nobody knows what you guys do here. I know what you do. Nobody else knows what you do. You guys are doing great work. It's amazing what you got to do. I'm so thrilled to come to work every single day, and nobody knows what you do. Well, that should not be the case. Every employee should know what you do, how does it touch the community. And if they feel that excitement, they're going to love coming to work every day, and their creativity, which Mike was talking about, will come to the fore. So this is a statistic I thought was valuable. The percentage of employees or employers who say that meeting the needs of employees across life stages and the diversity spectrum is an important objective. 80% are saying that to us now. So across your entire spectrum of life, so the woman who is pregnant, how does she feel about how she's going to be treated in that organization at every stage of her pregnancy, but well beyond that? We can't afford to lose that employee, and we don't want them to feel disconnected if they're taking time off from work. We want to be thrilled that they're doing that, and they need to feel that. It can't simply be an HR policy. And that goes to how the managers treat that individual, how their coworkers treat that individual, and so on. And I have this illustration at the top of the screen for you. This is a real illustration we used in a public meeting. And we're trying to show a new campus. And the reason I wanted to use this is, while we have lines around those various services and activities, it was designed to be more organic, more fluid than what you might see in construction drawings. Mike does not use this, but he's about to lay out a full campus with all the utilities in the ground. But this is what the rest of the community can relate to. So when we're talking about meeting the needs of the employees, this tradition we've had in the past where we have these hard and fast rules about you will take or allowed to take 18 days off once you've had a baby, and you can take 4 days off for this and so on. That fluidity for which we provide for the needs of our employees have completely changed. We've become far more flexible and design our policies, our HR policies, around how the employees really live their life. And if you're looking at an employer who doesn't do that, there's something wrong. So that's something that I think we see increasingly in the profession. I didn't want to leave you without an actual reference to a study that was done. I'll pretend I'm an academic. So the FTA report 0191 is, make a note if you really want to look it up and read it. It's an NCHRP report done by the Transportation Research Board. And they cited at the very beginning of the report this statement: when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. And that's how employees need to feel about the work they're doing. So the skill set, I'll just touch on this briefly. Will employees know who their customer is? If Mike hired you tomorrow to work at David Evans, do you know who your customer is? Well, you might think, well, the people who we do work for, that's our customer. And that's not true. Your customer is your coworker who needs something. Anybody who needs something from you is your customer. So Mike is your customer. Mike needs something from you, a drawing or a report or something. He's your customer. But Mike can also be your customer. Or rather, you need something from Mike. Mike, I need your time. I've never done this before. Can you help me out here? So that is what customer service skills is needed to feel like you're providing customer service and that you're receiving customer service. That thinking, which Mike touched on, that humility, is vital into the future. The next one is leadership training that is not taking place nearly to the degree it needs to. So a new employee comes in, should they expect leadership training? It should be the norm, not the exception. Every person they first get hired should have a pathway for leadership training, and that should be formalized so that they know that you really care about them developing those skills to become the next manager or vice president. And then how to build relationships. I need to have a positive relationship in my job with the DOT. We get money from the DOT. We need their approval to do stuff on their roads. I need to have a positive relationship with the employees at the DOT. Do I know how to do that? It might be having coffee with those guys, but really it's at a professional level, that's really what's not needed. And so do you know how to develop those relationships, and you're developing those skills now? And then finally, creativity and innovation. Mike does not want to hire a new employee who can't be creative. That's perhaps my biggest frustration in my work with staff is not being creative and looking for solutions. If you just want to do what's been done before, and that didn't work very well, why do we want to do that again? We don't want to do that again. So that creativity is something we just love to have those employees who are willing to be creative and innovative. And if they've heard something at a conference like this, they say, wow, that was something new. I want to try that. I'm thrilled. So if any employee ever says to me, I want to go to a conference, sign you up. I'll pay for everything, please go. But come back with something. And so that's all I have for you. I think we have a couple minutes for questions. So. Thank you.
So now let's open for questions. Any questions? Yeah, maybe the girl in the middle.
Hi, thanks everyone. My name is Rachel Brown. I'm with the Port of Seattle. And I noticed a lot of your points were pretty focused on office workers and highly skilled professionals in this field. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about the trades or like Washington State Ferry, maritime worker shortage, and also transit operators and how to deal with those workforce issues.
Well, we have transit operators. We manage a small transit system, not King County Metro, we're not that. I think some of the principles behind what's been said is true. That they have to have a pathway to leadership. We want them to give us creative solutions to the problems they're facing. They need to know who their customer is. That report I cited from FTA, it was focused on transit drivers, but it applies across the transportation professions. So I guess, my initial reaction is, I don't see a huge difference between the needs between the blue collar workers and maybe the white collar workers that we referred to them in the past. I do think that they don't get that training though. I don't know if there's any bus drivers in the room. Any bus drivers? Probably not. You're getting the training with them now.
I know in King County Metro, Terry White was a transit operator as he started. So my experience working for the WashDOT, State DOT, some of the most competent and passionate and creative people that I work with started out either they were technicians out in the field and decided I want to be able to manage this project, and so you have to create opportunities. So in when I started, there was actually a rotation program. And what was called the Super Tech program. I don't know if it's still available. Mark James is over here. But what that was to give people who were entry level all of the skill sets for different areas of operating, design, constructing, and maintaining, so that you get a full flavor. And then after that training and qualification, you get elevated. There's also a need for us to think about the qualifications. So like the land surveyors, a lot of times they could gain those skills. The qualification of having the education in those backgrounds, sometimes it's not really necessary. And so you need to remove as an agency those barriers so that people who have and can excel and bring that talent and passion to your organization to serve the needs of your customers, you need to make sure that that's available and remove some of those barriers. And then third, I think the lived experience is so important. Sometimes we forget that it's that insight to be able to communicate to the people that you're serving that may not have a voice, but that experience and you know how to reach out. That helps make those projects and the service that you provide that much more effective.
I got one quick thought here in that I showed you that large sector of the population that's working in the transportation industry. We were only 10% of that, the engineers. The rest of it was that group that operates and maintains our right-of-way system. And what we do as a designer, we want to engage them through design to make sure we're capturing what their needs are so we get the best solution for the life of that project.
If you're all adding to this question, it's great. Like Amazon has 1 million people who put the stuff in the boxes. We call them associates. If you wanted to be associate for the rest of your life, that's your choice. If you want to start with that at the very entry level, you have the opportunity to be there for a year. And then you can be for free, be trained to be a software developer engineer in 9 months. And now my faculty folks here is going to kill me. You don't need to go to school. You can start as an associate for a year, as 18 years old, 19 years old, put yourself in the boxes. If that's for you, be there for the rest of your life. If you want to be something else, if you want to reskill, Amazon or other companies, now they have these reskilling opportunities that for free, you will be paid. You can be whatever you want in that company with the opportunities that they have. So I think it's great that I think entry-level workers are, and again, as it mentioned, their performance is better than a campus hire in many roles, because they appreciate, they know what's going on, they have all of those human skills more than, I believe, other group of hiring.
All right, I think given the time constraint, we have to cut discussion at this point because we're a couple minutes away to the award ceremony and the quick talk like about the posters. So let's stop here. These people will be around. You can certainly get them and ask questions. We make actually this session topic very vague. I don't expect we'll solve the problem today, but certainly everybody needs to start to think about it, right? So it may take some time to address it. I'm thinking about maybe putting together a workforce challenge solution workshop, maybe sometime later. So we can gather people's solution suggestions and put together a function plan or action plan. So that way we can start work together to address it step by step. So please keep in your mind, you may want to use the restroom very quick and then go to the auditorium before 12 p.m. We'll start there with the award ceremony and then play the video for the lightning talk for the posters. And then after that, it's the lunch. All right? See you in the auditorium. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Tom.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. So I'm an assistant professor.